Hey, man! You crazy? Hey, man! You wrecked the car, man! You wrecked the car, man! Wrecked the car, man! The car, man!
These days, playing open world games with big maps is something that is probably taken for granted. Every single gaming developer wants to force you to clock big hour numbers playing their games, or to brag about their games having vast million square mile maps. Back in the late 90s, things were rather different. Linearity in the games wasn't frowned upon, because the technology dictated the developers' ability to open up their games. Making a full 3D open world game was almost impossible. Sure, you would have a game like Final Fantasy VII with a big 3D map, but it wasn't seamless. Reaching into any destination would result in a loading screen and a different layout. GTA was open, but it was still a 2D top-down game. So here comes the Wheelman, Driver. One of the first 3D driving games where you can take a ride in the entire city, seamlessly. To be more specific, in the 4 cities. Yes, 4 big cities in one game. That's huge! So Driver was the proof that PS1 is capable of running such games without much trouble. And the game was heavily inspired by the movies or events of getaway drivers doing insane stuff driving trying to escape the police or other baddies. And you'd be driving a big muscle gas guzzling American cars from the era when the story was set. Yep, in the 70s. What more could you possibly want? Driver has pressed all the right buttons and everybody was instantly hooked on the game. To be fair, all of those comparisons with the GTA were rather unfair. Driver was more inclined towards just driving cars, be it running away from the cops or running on time to reach whatever needs to be reached. Getting out of the car was out of the question. Running over pedestrians or shooting them was also out of the question. So then how can Driver be a GTA competitor? Well, people see criminal missions in open cities and immediately draw their conclusions. And those conclusions have hurt the Driver franchise severely by the 3rd installment. So don't do it, pretty please. You're killing the games unintentionally or intentionally. But still, stop it. Driver came to be as a result of having 2 obsessions intertwined together. Martin Edmondson of Reflection Studios had the obsession for demolition derby events from the young days as he would watch them with his father. Seeing big muscle cars deliberately ramming into each other until the last functional one wins was probably the most thrilling adrenaline shot a young boy can have. If I remember correctly, he and his brother would use toothpaste tubes to imitate demolition derby events, because toothpaste tubes can deform in a similar fashion as cars' bodywork. After all, Reflections would develop destruction derby games, so I guess Edmondson would have his fix finally served. Or not yet. See, when you like demolition derby, there's a great chance you would like movies filled with getaway driving, running from the cops while knocking down cones or barrels and doing some crazy stunts. Edmondson was probably highly influenced by the titles like Bullet or The Driver when he decided that Reflections should make a game like Driver. Luckily, it all went well and the game was fully realized in the June of 1999. Almost immediately in the intro cutscene, you can see where this is going. Suspicious man in a leather jacket is choosing to hotwire a car that resembles a '67 Ford Mustang in the garage. After that, he is being chased by the police in a dramatic scene of running out of the same garage. Now tell me that this intro is not one of the best descriptions of the game ever. Everything you need to know is shown right here in 2 or 3 minutes of that cutscene. Driver is filled with lots of driving modes, but I'm pretty sure you want me to scroll this stylish menu back onto the man and select Undercover. That man is our beloved X-Rays driver, now undercover policeman called John Tanner, whose job is to uncover some pretty dangerous stuff and investigate what a big crime syndicate led by Castaldi up to. Lieutenant Mackenzie gives Tanner a job to infiltrate the mafia in Miami behind closed doors, since he says Tanner is the best one he's got. And this is where the game gives the biggest bitch slap of rude awakening to almost every gamer ever. The infamous, unskippable garage car park tutorial. Many of the gamers could not beat it and they have stopped playing the game altogether. No really, it was that hard for everybody. but I think most of the failures stem from not knowing what each move from the list means. If you're not into cars, maybe you'll have a hard time knowing what to do. Or maybe most of the gamers could not execute a reverse 180. Because when you know what to do and how to do it, it's fairly simple. Just like this. See? It's not that hard. Just watch the paintball and don't wreck the car, man! In the apartment, the voice message machine will be the device of choosing and accepting missions. The story of Driver is spread across Miami, San Francisco, Los Angeles and New York in the form of 44 missions. But it's not possible to play all the missions in one run, since on a few occasions the game forces us to choose one of the voice messages. In other words, forces us to choose between several missions, which means that you need to play the game 2 times to experience everything. What a subtle way to increase replayability, huh? Since Tanner can't get out of the car, all you can do is drive. Just drive. I mean, after all, the name of the game is Driver. Most of the missions are your typical drive from point A to point B. That drive can be intercepted by cops, so it often turns into a chase. Bring the felony meter high enough and they become very violent in ramming into you or setting roadblocks. You better lose the tail before you reach the destination, or before the time runs out, or before you get your car wrecked. Unlike GTA, the police in this game will start to chase you if you drive 1 mile per hour faster than the limit allows, or if you step on a zebra just 1 millimeter more than necessary when you approach the set of lights. They're just ruthless and apocalyptically unforgiving pigs. Some of the missions will require that you ram other vehicles or safely drive somebody or something like explosives to the set destination. My favorite missions are rare ones like Payback, where you need to ram your car into shop windows in Miami, or where you need to drive the taxi very violently to scare the passenger in San Francisco. These add variety in the mix. Some of the missions will be easy and some will be insanely hard. I mean, the last mission, President Run, is just insufferable. Not only do you drive a big-ass slow limo, you are being chased by cops and black cars that are so much faster and so violent that your limo will learn to fly. Literally. Whoever manages to beat the mission is the king of all gamers ever to walk on this humble earth. No, seriously.
Need you to make an exchange. This case for a locker key. It's a sweet deal. Cash for a key. In and out. Wham, bam, boom. Meet them at the marina. Get the key.
All of these missions have a story that is decently rich on paper, but in practice, it just sucks maximum balls. Why? Check out these ultra bad FMV cutscenes. They're so haggard you just wanna skip them. I've read that they were hastily put together at the last stages of the game development, so that's why they're so bad. That's why I didn't even pay attention to the story when I was playing it back then. Driver 2 did a far better job in this department. Playing it all right now for the sake of this video and watching these clips. I mean, I cannot find the proper words to describe this mess, so let me shut up and show this to you instead.
Slater's in a Frisco cell taking heat. You better get real specific, real quick.
It figures. Slater knew all about this, and so he sings a song to the police and saves himself some circuits on the exercise yard.
No way, Slater? That don't lay right.
You would never do that, right?
The question is simple.
And you would think that Resident Evil 1 was very laughable with voice acting? Driver came full 3 years later and this is much, much worse. But even without watching those horrible cutscenes and dumb voice acting, you will find a lot of fun doing missions just by themselves, because you'll be in control of one of the best driving physics of the era. It's just so satisfying and precise. You can really feel the weight of the car, the overall ride, the body roll because of the soft shock absorbers and understeer/oversteer mechanics. If you master it, you can really maneuver the car very tightly and do some insane stunts. You can really become what the title says, a real wheelman. If you manage to do some crazy runs and especially cop chases and getaways, you can engage yet another awesome feature Driver has. I've never seen something like that feature in any game before Driver, and since maybe a few games have it on their own variant. What I'm on about? The feature is called Film Director. Yes, some of the driving games had replays, but not a single one had this. Check it out. If you happen to have some directing abilities or the affinity to do some montage, you can do it all in the film director. Yes, I know, it's very rudimental and primitive by any standards, but it's an old PS1 game, so take that into consideration. However, even then, if you spend some time in it, you can direct very good stunt drives and car police chases. Let me try to do one so you can see it in action. Doesn't it look cool? And you can save it onto the memory card if you want to look at it again or brag about it to your friends. Yes, I know, I'm a little bit late to the party. You could brag 20-something years ago. Not today. I think that film director was probably the moment that sparked the idea of a game called Stuntman. Am I right? What do you think? If you are bored enough, you can do some driving games where you chase other cars or where you run from the cops. Or you can chase checkpoints across the town or collect triangles in trailblazing before the time runs out. Or you can do some laps in dirt tracks. So like I said before, this is nothing spectacular, so only if you're bored you can do this. I mean, you don't really have to be bored, but still, you get the picture, right? The only mode that can give you some spikes of cheap thrills is survival mode. It's you against 4 ultra-violent cops trying to survive a brutal bashing. So when you enter the survival mode, you know what city you need to choose. Of course, San Francisco, because it has steep hills so your friendly law officers can learn to fly. Just look at this carnage. You can barely survive for more than 10 seconds, but I guess it is what it is. Just a cheap thrill for killing time. But we can leave all of that aside because there is nothing better to do than taking a ride. It's just you in your car driving around and doing nothing else. The only problem could be cops and damage to the car, so for prolonging the drive, I would use the cheats for invulnerability and immunity, just so I can take a ride for much longer to explore the cities. Miami, San Francisco and New York have the day and nighttime variant of the free ride, while Los Angeles is played only in the dark. When you drive a car, you're accompanied by a small but nice selection of tunes that mimic the era in which the game is set. That means that the music is very much inspired by the rock, funk and pop of the 70s. If a police car starts to chase you, the music changes. It becomes faster and more dynamic, so the tone for the action is set. Too bad it doesn't return to normal when the police car is wrecked, but it's not a big deal. When it comes to the cons of the game, you can see that the pop-up is huge. In other words, the draw distance is poor. But let's be real, that was a required compromise to have a fully 3D open world game actually running in those times. Not to mention to have a steady FPS count. It's a miracle that PS1 was capable of running such a game. I guess another compromise would be having only sharp 90-degree turns. As you can see in the maps, there are no rounded turns. Why? I guess the less complicated geometry you have, the easier is it to fill the game with other stuff. Drawing more complicated shapes takes more computation power and stuff, so yeah, you get a picture. Another bad thing for the game is the bugs. Check this situation. What the hell was that supposed to be? You can also do this intentional bug like breaking through walls, for example in Miami. I would suggest using the cheat for invulnerability because you'll need it. So, provoke the cops, fill up the felony meter to get them really aggressive and drive to the Bal Harbor and position yourself sideways against this plant wall. If a violent cop manages to hit you hard enough, you'll come through the wall. Now you can drive out of bounds, on a water and stuff. When you decide that you have enough of this, just run full speed under the bridge like this and the car will transfer itself onto the bridge. Problem solved. But these setbacks didn't hinder the reception of the game that sold in large quantities. By large, I mean several million copies across worldwide. This means that the new IP was born and it will spawn several sequels. Reflection Studios were onto something big and people and critics recognized it. But maybe even more people would recognize it if it wasn't for that infamous garage tutorial level. Tell me one game that has a tutorial that pissed off so many people. Cuphead? Oh, I see what you mean, but that's just one specific case. Did you know that driver contains one more city? Yes, this one was hometown of Reflections, a new castle, but it's playable in PC version only. On the PS1 version you can only see it in the credits section, but I think there is a workaround with using Game Shark codes. The city itself captures the gloomy British atmosphere very well, but it has one mistake. Can you spot it? That's right, cars are not driving on the left side of the road. I think the team didn't have enough time to program AI to switch lanes. Also, the city map is very small and there is no mission involved. It's just a nice little bonus. Well, that about wraps it up. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment and subscribe for more of the similar content. Until next time, kanpai!